our audio. That's probably redundant, but if you're getting this signal, let us know you can see us, let us know you can hear us, and just put it in the chat. And we are going to get started in just a few minutes. We just want to make sure everybody can see and hear us before we get started. Diego, is everything looking good on your end?
I think it's looking really good. I see there's some people already waiting here on the chat. I got a hello from Commissario Aurelio and from Jax. And yeah, I think it's working, right?
Cool. Sounds good. So if you can see us, if you can hear us, I see Desmond saying he's loud and clear from Granada as well. Thanks for hanging out, Desmond. Just put it in the chat. Let us know you can hear us. We're going to get started officially in a few minutes. Getting a little bit of audio interference. Just wondering if that's my end or someone else's end. Can anybody else hear a bit of static? Oh, it's gone away. No? Anyone else hear some static, or is that just me?
No, it's just you.
Okay, roll with the punches. Canadian internet over here. Hey, Diego and Georgia, you guys are in Tahiti right now, right?
Yes, Tahiti, French Polynesia, the island of Moorea.
Okay, well, I don't have to tell you how jealous I am because we already talked about that before we went live. But tell us a little bit about, what's the weather like there right now?
Right now it's winter time, which is just like cools off a bit. Doesn't get to be cold ever here. But the nice thing is that doesn't rain so much. On the summertime, it rains more frequently. So nice is right now is really good. Sometimes, like today, gets a bit windy. But when the wind goes down, it's just like the perfect day. You're not too hot. It's the perfect weather to swim, to snorkel. So yeah, it's pretty good. That's high season.
So I'm always curious because we've thought about how much fun it would be to have a boat and spend, a lot of time on the boat. Does it always move? It's just sometimes it moves more than other times? Or are there actually times where it sits pretty still?
Well, depends where you are a lot. But yeah, to be pretty still, it's, I think, the least, not most of the times, basically. Here in French Polynesia, actually super good. We cannot complain because the anchors are inside the reef. So it's kind of a lagoon. It's good. Well, in Canada, there's a lot of lakes. So in the lakes is good too.
Yeah, but the snorkeling in the Canadian lakes just makes you feel icky. It doesn't,
yeah.
There's nothing really to see, okay? Don, how is the snorkeling down there in Indiana?
Yeah, you kind of walk through the cornfields and it's the same thing. Yeah.
Okay. Wesley, where are you at right now? You're not in BC at Zentrax head office in Canada right now, are you?
No, I'm not. I'm in Calgary, Alberta. It's very hot, but whether I'm here in Vancouver or in Calgary, it's honestly best to be inside. The weather there's a bit of a heat wave in Western Canada right now, so we're just trying to stay cool and drink lots of water. But it's good. It's good to be here with everyone.
Cool. Well, I'm just working out a couple of technical things that we're seeing on our end, and then we're going to get ready to get started. By the way, if you're watching early, this is the pre-show, so you're not late. You haven't missed anything. We're just making sure we work out some of the technical details, and we're going to be taking questions today, both for Georgia and Diego and their boat, Unforgettable, and also from Wesley, who's the product manager of solar at Zentrax, and Don Wilson, who's the tech doctor who can answer questions about just about anything. So weirdest and wildest, we're going to give those ones to Don. But if you have a question today, please drop it in the chat, and we're going to make sure that we get those questions. So before we jump too far further, we do have one thing I need to sort out. I'm going to send a quick email. Georgia and Diego, what is it like now that you are parents? How has that changed your experience on the boat?
You want to do it? I'll do it.
You can go first.
Oh, it's busy. I can tell you it's very busy, and because we kind of before had a very laid back living style, and now it's just like we have time every action we take, so we can cope with the boat tasks, with taking our channel ahead, and you know normal home chores, and take care of her and enjoy ourselves. So it's really busy, but it's not much difference from having a baby anywhere else. I guess we are pretty much used to live on a boat. We've been living on a boat for 5 years now. So yeah, I think it's pretty much the same.
I think it's a good excuse to slow down with boat work.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, but it's amazing. We are super happy. We are super happy to have a new crew member with us. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of joy too. To be able to show her our lifestyle, it's a blessing, I think.
And yeah, we are taking this time. Isla will be 3 months next Saturday, so we are taking this time just to learn the ropes and slowly get better on everything, and have to learn learn many things and readapt.
Of course. Now, you've been sailing for about 4 years. Is that about right?
5 years and a half. 5.5
Okay,
years.
5.5 years. So I was wrong by about 18 months. But back then when you started, did you imagine that you were going to have Isla and things would change? Or did you think we're only going to be on the boat for a couple years and then we'll get a house when we have a family? How did that all work for you?
Well, guys, just to let you know, Isla is here. If you see a hand passing through the camera, it's because there's a baby here. Yeah, oops. I think she's probably going to fall asleep soon, but she just came to say hello. And, well, we never imagined we would go this far answering your question, Adam. Yes, we left for like a 6 months trip. And
maybe 1 year.
Maybe 1 year, and it's been 5 already, and nearly 6, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I also imagine when we have a baby, we might stop the boat and just move back to land. And here we are with a newborn on the boat. So, yeah, I think we just fell in love for this lifestyle, and now it's our life. Actually, it's not a trip anymore. It's our life.
I think that's summarized. It's not a trip. It's just the way we live, as you live.
On the
like
RV.
a nomadic style, and we are happy with this, and I think it has been beautiful. As long as it's still beautiful and we are happy, we're gonna keep doing it.
So obviously the people who are watching on the Unforgettable Sailing YouTube channel, they know your history. And we also have a bunch of people who are tuning in to watch through the Zentrax channel. So what kind of, just to let everybody know, we haven't officially started, you're not late. But Diego and Georgia, what led you to kind of get into the boating lifestyle? What's kind of your history up until that point?
Well, my dad had a history with boats and on sailing, and at some point I kind of took over his boat, and it was an old boat, just for the weekends. And I don't know, maybe it was just a thing that I used to impress Georgia in the beginning when we started to date, just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna sail around the world on this boat and blah blah blah. And I don't know, and then I started to pursue this idea, and at some point it was just like getting its own life, and at some point we just not could go back, it was just like putting money on the boat, making that boat livable. And after 2-3 years messing around with the boat, it's just like, okay, I put so much money and work on that boat that we need to do something, and we set sail. And we were pretty naive, we don't have much experience. But it turned out really good. We find lots of joy and a lifestyle that we didn't know before.
Yeah, for people that don't know us yet, this was an old, small sailboat. So not the boat we are right now. So along the way, we changed. We moved to another boat, and lots of things happened.
Well, that's so exciting. Thank you so much for hanging out today. Well, let's officially get started. If you've been watching for a few minutes, again, just double check you can hear us, you can see us, and let us know. We're going to officially get started. today, and you're not late. We were just making sure that everybody could hear and see. So let's start with Georgia and Diego. I know you just gave us a little bit of information about your history, but why don't you take a moment and introduce yourself for everybody who's watching on the Zentrax YouTube channel.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this live stream. It's an honor to be here discussing with these experts, solar systems and power systems on boats. My name is Diego, and together with Georgia, my wife, and Isla, our baby, we've been running the Unforgettable Sailing Project, which is our YouTube channel and other social media. So since 2015, we set sail from South Brazil. And over these 5.5 years, we sailed over 20,000 nautical miles. We sailed the Brazilian coast and spent a couple of seasons in the Caribbean. And 2019, we took a 19 days voyage between Galapagos in Ecuador and French Polynesia, where we currently stand. And yeah, we have been making from the life at sea our life, and has been really good.
Well, thank you for hanging out with us today. I'm excited to learn more of your story, and I know a lot of our viewers have questions to ask as well. Also joining us today is Don Wilson. Don, tell us a little bit about your history with Zentrax and what Zentrax is up to.
Well, I've been with Xantrex since 2001, but I've got a history of vehicle electrical since I was a kid, just working on cars. I'm an applications engineer. I'm also the author of the Tech Doctor training series that Xantrex puts out for technicians to help them troubleshoot, to find tips and tricks on different things. And I'm grateful to be here. Happy to be here.
Cool. So if you have a question that is completely tech related about your specific system or just about anything in general, we're looking for the craziest and the wildest questions. We're going to throw them Don's way today. And hopefully he'll be able to give you some answers to help you with your system. Also joining us is Wesley Shuen. Wesley is the solar product manager at Zentrax. Wesley, tell us a little bit about your role there at Zentrax.
Hi, Adam. Thanks for having me. It's great to be here with Don, with Diego, with Georgia, with yourself. I'm the solar product manager at Xantrex. I've been, the solar program has been a newer addition to the Xantrex portfolio, but I'm very excited to be able to answer any questions we have, anyone here has on solar, and introduce, thinking about adding solar to their boat or maybe other vehicle like RV. So just great to be here, and excited for the questions that people have for us.
So as Wesley mentioned through our whole broadcast, we're going to be taking your questions. We're going to be answering some questions that came in ahead of time, all about solar, and any questions you have about hooking them up and how much you need and how life on a boat works and how solar plays into that. I do want to say hi in the chat. I see that Duca and Roberta are watching from Odd Life Crafting. So I wanted to say hi to Duca and Roberta. We had a live broadcast with them recently too. And Diego and Georgia, I want to start with this question because I think it'll frame the whole conversation. What made you decide to get into sailing? What was that tipping point for you? And this question came from somebody on Facebook. So what was that tipping point for you? Why did you decide to get into sailing? And how much experience did you have before you even got started?
Right. I think on my side, it really started that was not straight by the sailing, was that I really wanted to do a change of life. I wanted to spend some time traveling, and somebody wanna participate here. I'm sorry. It's my turn, Isla. And I really wanted to take some time from like working from Monday to Friday and just enjoying the weekends and see the world. I was really like wanted to do this, and then I met Diego, and he came with the sailboat. So I was like, okay, that's a great mean to do it. So, but I have never sailed. So I started sailing. I took I went a few times with him, and I really like it. Oh well, in the first times I was super scared, but then I started enjoying it, and yeah, I think it's for you was a bit different, but
from my side was I was at some point I was reading a lot about other families and couples adventures, and the idea seemed just like fantastic. Spend your days fishing and swimming, just like having the time to develop on other skills and to improve yourself. So that idea was very, very tempting to me, and I decided, I want to do the same. I want to do something like that. I want to live with passion and doing something I love, not in a few days a year or on the weekends. I want to do that every single day. So that was the main motivation.
So a question came in already from Lucas, and he's asking, is it possible for you to live on your boat without needing a generator? Is it possible to generate all the power that you need from just solar and your batteries, or is a generator a necessity for you?
Oh, it's totally possible to live without a generator. One thing, it really bothers me to charge the batteries with the engine, because this heats the boat, adds engine hours, and it's not good. You have to maintain the main engine more frequently. But solar panels can do the trick for sure. If you have a well-balanced system, absolutely you can do that. There's many boats that lives from solar, even just like to make water. And I know that we have friends that run electric stoves with solar. So if you have a good solar period and a good set of arrays, well balanced with a good gear, for sure you can. And generator, it's nice. It's a nice addition, but you have to run. You have to burn fuel every day or all the time you run it. So yeah, totally doable, totally possible. And Wesley can confirm that. Especially nowadays, the efficiency on the solar panels are getting better and better.
So let's talk a little bit about that, because there was a question that came in from Sergio for Wesley. And Sergio asks, if I have a parallel solar system as it relates to controllers, what is the optimum relation between solar panels per controller to have a more efficient system?
Thanks for the question. That's a really good question. Especially on a boat, that question comes up when shading can be a major issue on a boat. You have a lot of overhead objects like a boom or a mast or a sail. And so if cost is not an issue, and I emphasize that, then the ideal situation is to have a single solar panel per charge controller. This way, if you have multiple solar panels, multiple charge controllers, if one panel is shaded, the other unshaded panels are not impacted by that shaded panel. Now, for most people, I think you probably have multiple solar panels connected to a single charge controller. So on a boat, ideally, you probably want to group the solar panels that are in maybe the same area, the same side of the boat that's experiencing the same amount of sun, and have a charge controller for that. And then on the other side of the boat that's maybe not experiencing so much sun at that time, have a separate charge controller and group those solar panels with a separate charge controller. That way, the sunny panels are experiencing full sun, there's no shading, and the shaded panels, they can be shaded, but they don't have any impact on the unshaded panels. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, so a similar question came in from Fernando, and Fernando asks, can I connect a load in parallel to the solar panel before the controller, or will that interfere with the Mppt function?
That's an interesting question. I've not seen a situation where you apply a load in parallel with the solar panel. I think maybe the best way to answer is that you want to. I think that would definitely impact the Mppt tracking functions, because the tracking functions is looking for input currents and voltages from the solar panels, and then when you have a load applied in parallel with the solar panel, I think that definitely would interfere with the Mppt function. So it's not something I've seen before or would recommend.
So Georgia and Diego, we got an exciting question for you, but before we get to that question, I want to let everybody who's watching know that we've got an exciting announcement coming up. on behalf of Zentrax. And I'm not allowed to say anything more about it except that you need to stick around, because in a few minutes, we've got an exciting announcement coming up, and you don't want to miss it. So stick around, ask your questions, get your answers, of course, but don't miss this announcement. Georgia and Diego, somebody's asked, if you were to start over, is there anything that you would have done differently with your system? Or with your boat life in general. So maybe you could talk a little bit about somebody who's interested in getting into this lifestyle and they want to learn what you might have done differently.
Yeah, well, this is not our first boat. This is not the boat we started with. But talking about when we moved to this boat, we only got a new boat. It's a huge excitement. So you tend to underlook some issues. And just like we had a very old generator on this boat, and a very good solar panel on the arch, on the stern, but that was it. And we just like we decided, no, let's go like this. We'll make this generator work. And I regret that I didn't put more solar panels earlier, and that I insist so much with that generator, because in the end I spent so many hours working on that generator, trying to make that old piece of rust work. You know, people who follows, they've seen this drama. And sometimes I was in places like San Blas. I was many beautiful places that I could be enjoying. I actually inside the locker, getting dirty with grease and getting stressed, dealing with that. If I instead had put more solar panels, like we are doing now, I could have enjoyed myself and maybe stressed myself a bit less.
Yeah, we just postponed something that we wound up doing, and it's not. This is like a secondary issue, like power. It's every day. We need it all the time, so it's a primary thing for us. So yeah, I think it would have saved us a lot of work.
And in the long term, these things just get to you, you know. If you are boating for the weekend or something like that, you can be creative and do some solutions. But on the long term, you want to have a nice system and things like that. So I should have done it earlier. But next boat.
Sorry, it's not because this live stream is about power. It's really the main issue, for us.
Yeah, we ended up burning a whole set of batteries because we didn't have enough weight to charge it, you know. So just and you know, when you get your batteries to work on a very low level for a long time, you kind of ruin them, and we did that. And batteries can be an expensive piece of gear, so
we should take good care of them.
So we've got some live questions coming in, and that's great. Please, if you have a question for Diego and Georgia, or for any of our Zentrax experts, please go ahead and leave them in the chat. Don, we've got a live question that came in from Kevin. He just bought an XC2000 inverter, and he's using 4 AGM 115 amp hour batteries with 600 watt modules. So can he use 2-aught cables from the batteries, or should he be using 4-aught cables?
Okay, so I'm assuming he's talking between the inverters and the battery. So yeah, an XC2000 can use 2-aught cable up to 5 feet. But here's the key with battery cables. If you're going longer, you always want to make them thicker, because we're dealing with voltage drop. But also you don't want to go too long, because then you end up getting ripple in the cables, and that causes some other issues. But if you've got 2-aught, you can absolutely use 2-aught. But if you're looking to buy and you want the best performance, go bigger. You can put in 3-aught, 4-aught. There's nothing wrong with that, as long as you still fuse it right. And that helps control voltage drop against heavy loads. So if you don't have a lot of heavy loads, you're fine with the 2-aught. If you have some heavy loads, you're still okay with the 2-aught. But if you can get some 4-aught, you're just going to be that much better.
Great, Kevin. I hope that answered your question. I know there are a few variables in there, so if you need any clarification, please drop just some clarification in the chat. We'll make sure you get that answer. Wesley, we had a question that came in from Lucas ahead of time, and he was asking about how much more efficient solar panels are that can follow the path of the sun. Could you dig into that a little bit for us?
That's a great question. So solar tracking devices, basically solar panels are mounted on these tracking devices, and they follow the sun wherever it's moving. So you can have a single axis tracking device that goes east to west. You can have a dual axis tracking system that follows exactly the sun's azimuth. And I think some of the literature that I've read in the past, you can have anywhere from 25 to 45%, extra energy harvesting when you're able to track the sun. But the challenge is that you have to have that tracking system. And on a boat, that's probably not recommended. First off, the cost to have a tracking system is probably very cost prohibitive. And then the second point is that the actuators on these tracking systems, especially when a boat is turning left and right, and you're making the tracking system work very hard to keep track of the sun, and especially in a marine environment where there's a lot of saltness, it can cause the actuators to fail over time. So with all these technical risks, it's not ideal for vehicle or mobile applications. Usually we see tracking systems for residential, commercial, buildings, or even utility applications. But for a vehicle, probably not recommended for the reasons I mentioned earlier.
So if somebody has a boat, Wesley, and they have the budget, and let's say space wasn't a constraint, rather than investing in a tracking system, what would you recommend they do with that similar budget to be able to create more power that they're maybe not getting if they're not tracking the sun?
Yeah, absolutely. There's multiple ways to be able to get more performance out of your solar panels. Some of the common ones are, for example, using an Mppt charge controller instead of using a PWM charge controller. Mppt charge controllers can be up to 30% more efficient than PWM controllers. Another way is some people use these manual tilting brackets. So if you have a glass panel, you can actually tilt your panels and angle them towards the sun. So you'll get a significant performance gain by doing that. Keeping your panels cool. So certainly some people have devised very creative mounting methods to have airflow underneath their solar panels. Keeping your solar panels cool is definitely a great way to get the most of your solar panels. The efficiency of solar panels tends to go down as the solar panel heats up. And other ways, wiring your panels in series. So wiring your panels in series tends to be a little bit more efficient compared to wiring your panels in parallel. So those are ones that are at the top of my mind that you can get the most of your solar panels without investing into a tracking system.
So Wesley, is there a way that you can figure out, like, is there an equation that talks about how many solar panels you actually need to get the power that you need?
Yes, there is. There's a very simple equation, 3 variables. The first one is the energy needs of your vehicle, your daily energy needs. So we would calculate that in watt hours or kilowatt hours. And then once you figure out how many watt hours you need in a day, add 30% on top of it. So if you have 1,000 watt hours of daily energy load needs, add 30%, so 1,300 watt hours, and that's going to be the amount of watts that you're going to need from your solar panels. And then once you have that 1,300 watts, divide that by 1,300 watt hours, divide that by the peak sun hours that you're going to see in a day. So depending on where you're around the world, in a peak sunny conditions, that can range from 5 peak sun hours to 8 peak sun hours in a day. And that should be able to calculate the number of watts of solar that you need.
So, Don, a question coming to you, and I know this is going to come as a complete surprise, but we get asked every single live broadcast that we do where we're asking questions. What is the difference in function between a PWM and an Mppt charge controller?
So a PWM, so there's fewer letters in PWM, and there's more. No, a PWM is a pulse width modulated. So what happens is you're getting energy from the solar panel, which is coming in at a higher voltage than the battery can take. So what the PWM does is it turns that that input on and off at a certain frequency and duration, so that the average voltage, instead of being 19 volts, which is what the panels are putting out, is around 14 volts, which is what your battery needs. And the problem with that is, like I said, it's turning it on and off and on and off. When it's off, your solar panels are still getting potential energy, but there's no place for it to go. So all that energy is just lost. And so that's why PWMs tend to be inefficient. It's not that they're converting energy differently or badly. They're just off 30% of the time. So you lose 30% of your energy right off the bat. Mppt, that stands for maximum power point tracking. So what an Mppt does is it brings in the voltage. One of the real benefits of an Mppt is you can bring the voltage in at a higher voltage. So you can run your solar panels in series, bring it in at a much higher voltage. With PWM, you really want your solar voltage to be as close to the battery voltage as possible, so you're losing less. But with the Mppt, you bring it in at a higher voltage, and what the Mppt will do is it'll pull that current in from the battery and track its power point. And once it finds its maximum power point, it'll say, okay, this is how much I can get out of my solar panels. That's what I'm going to use. And then it goes through a DC to DC converter and makes a battery charger out of that. It's much more efficient. And the real benefit is, you know, like I said, you wire your panels in series instead of parallel. With parallel, you've got 5 panels. Each one can put out, 10 amps, let's say. That means you've got to size your cable coming to the controller to 50 amps because it's 10 amps, 5 panels. With an Mppt and you run everything in series, because you're raising the voltage, the amperage stays the same. So your wires, your wire size can be rated for 10 amps instead of 50 amps. And so there's a lot of benefits to going with an Mppt controller.
So in that same kind of vein, we've got a question that came in ahead of time from Lars. And Lars is asking, what do I do if I'm buying a sailboat with 110 US system store power and bringing the boat back to Europe with the 230 volt system shore power? Can he just put a converter up front? What else does he need to take into consideration?
Yeah, that's really what's needed is a converter, because it's not just a voltage difference. It's not just 110 volt to 230 volt. There's a frequency difference in Europe too. So in the US it's 60 hertz, and in Europe it's 50 hertz. So yeah, there are converters on the market. They cost a lot. Let's just put it that way. And there's another way to do it if you really want to get creative, and that's to have a universal voltage charger charging a battery bank, and then use an inverter to power the system. There's a lot of ways to skin a cat, but yeah, it's either converter or figure out a way to filter that out with a charger and then an inverter.
Got it. So Lars, I hope that answers your question. And if you need some more details, just let us know. We'll give you Don's personal email address. No, I'm just joking. Put it in the chat and we'll answer that question while we're live. Georgia and Diego, Dave from YouTube asked, how do you balance your power between critical systems like AIS, NAV, and important systems like fridge, freezer, and less important, let's say like your electric cooking? If you have gas, do you have gas as an alternative for cooking, or how do you balance those things out?
Well, we have gas. Our stove is gas, but yeah, we need to see what's more important at the moment. If we are sailing, definitely the navigation instruments are the most important, like the autopilot, the chart plotter. So we need all this equipment. This is security. So if we are low on power, we have to turn off the fridge sometimes, or like some other housing stuff. If we are anchored, then we don't need these instruments working all the time. We can, we keep them off actually when we are anchored, most of the equipment, and we run the fridge and all the other stuff.
Yeah, it's just about to prioritize according to the situation.
Yeah. And
there's different levels of needs according to whatever we're doing. And yeah, when you have like lots of wind and lots of sun, then of course we can abuse from power and we can turn everything and leave everything on. But otherwise, we just prioritize according to the situation. And when it gets really bad, you just like go turning off everything to the point that's just lights.
Okay,
Well,
Don,
we're
we've got
working to don't get to that.
Of course. Don, we've got a question that came in from Morton on YouTube. He says he doesn't have gas on his boat. His generator is ancient and almost dead. He got some new AGM batteries this spring, and he wants to buy a new inverter for his cooking plate and his kettle. Should he use lithium, or can he keep his current batteries, with the understanding that he might like to upgrade his powerful or use a more powerful inverter in the near future? He says his AGM batteries are 1,200 amp hours. Can he work with that together, or should he be looking at lithium?
So 1,200 amp hours. Well, let's talk about the differences between AGM and lithium. So you have 1,200 amp hours of AGM batteries, but that really means you only have about 600 usable amp hours because you never want to discharge below 50%. So that's the thing to look at. You've got 200 amp hours. Was it 200 amp hours? I totally forgot the number. It was six.
He said 1,200 amp hours.
So he's got 600 amp hours. All right. So he's got 600 amp hours of usable capacity. And if that's enough capacity to run cooktops, electric cooktops, and things like that, you just kind of have to get to know your own usage. Then you're fine. But the thing to think about with batteries is, look, an inverter is a generator that uses the battery as its fuel tank. So what you want is, if that becomes your main supply, if that's your main generator, how big of a fuel tank do you need? Well, right now you've got a pretty good sized fuel tank, but you can only use half of it. So if you're thinking about, if you need more fuel tank, but you don't have the space for it, or you don't have the weight capacity to add more batteries, then lithium is going to be the way to go, because you get more fuel with a smaller, lighter fuel tank. And so it's really kind of a personal decision on what is my usage. Can I do that with what I've got? AGM batteries are fine. They were the king of the hill not 10 years ago. So, you know, is that 600 amp hours enough for your usage? If it is, great. If not, do you have the weight and the size capacity to add enough to fill that gap? And if not, lithium's a great alternative to get that more capacity, lighter weight, a smaller size.
So I have another question that came in ahead of time from Declan, Don. And everybody who's watching right after this question, Diego and Georgia have an exciting announcement to make. And make sure you hang out for that. And that's going to come up right after Don answers this question. Don, are all chargers lithium-ion battery compatible, or do you have to be specific which chargers you want to use if you're going to be using lithium?
You really need to be specific, because lithium batteries don't act like normal batteries. We look at normal batteries and we say, okay, when they get discharged, the voltage drops and drops and drops and drops. I mean, you can get 2 volts out of a very discharged battery, but it's a linear drop as the battery discharges. Another thing is, if you try to overcharge a lead battery, then it'll take it and it'll use it and it'll damage the battery a little bit, but it's not going to just kind of leave you stranded. Lithium, because lithium has to be very protective of itself to keep from going into thermal runaway. When you abuse a lithium battery, either by over discharge or overcharge, the BMS's job is to shut the battery off. And so, you know, you don't want to be charging a battery, trying to put a lot of current into the battery, and the battery says it's full, but you've got the wrong chemistry charge algorithm, and so the battery's just going to shut off, and that energy's got to go somewhere. So if you have a lithium battery, at least make sure that your charging system has either a lithium setting that's appropriate for the chemistry you're using, or has a custom setting. So a lot of our inverter chargers that we developed pre-lithium had a custom setting, so we could do all kinds of different exotic chemistries. You decide what the voltages are going to be, the timing, and the compensations. So that's good too. You just need to know what to set those at.
So Diego and Georgia, now is the time. I'm going to leave it in your hands.
Can I say?
Yes, you can say.
Well, guys, we are super honored to announce that Zentrax is launching their new lithium batteries. They are actually launching lithium batteries, guys. This is super amazing.
And
You think that you're right?
and these batteries are coming in 2 different versions, 105 and 125 amps. You can find them in the major marine retailers. And yeah, this is it's so good to see the quality of Xantrex joining this lithium revolution. And over the moon to say that Unforgettable will equip with these babes as well. So you can follow up our experience with this. And just after this live stream, we're gonna launch another video, and you can get this launching promo where you get a discounted price and a free Yeti mug. If you don't know the Yeti mug, they are also really cool. And it's a great opportunity for everybody who's watching this live stream and for our followers. So yeah, stoked. I Don already told about the advantage of lithium, and he's the man to talk more about it. So it's we partnered with Zentrax a while ago, and we are very excited to see them joining the lithium market.
Yeah, and this is a great deal, exclusive for our crew. Yeah, for everybody that's watching the video. So we are super happy to have the honor to be the first ones to announce it publicly.
So after this live stream, we'll launch another video in our channel, Unforgettable Sailing channel, and you can see how to get the best deal on lithium batteries.
Yeah, we're gonna share a coupon code that you can get this discount. Yes, and where to get it and with all the details.
Sounds good.
Yeah, sorry. No, I was just going to say maybe Don can talk a little bit more about batteries. We know there are a lot of questions if they are dangerous.
There's people concerned about are they safe and how much better they are. And I think Don already started to talk about it.
Yeah, so there's a lot of misconceptions when it comes to lithium batteries. When people think about lithium, they get a little uptight about that because they saw what happened to certain cell phones, certain automakers, and certain airlines that have issues with thermal runaway. And I mentioned that, and nobody likes to hear those words because that's bad. But the thing to realize is that not all lithium chemistries are alike. Lithium cobalt, lithium manganese cobalts. There's a few different chemistries that are based on cobalt. Cobalt's a heavy metal, and it also, when mixed with lithium, can get into some of these thermal issues where they really kind of take off and start to burn. Lithium cobalt chemistries are really, really good at being small and lightweight. So that's why you see them in the airline industry, in the automotive industry, and in cell phones, especially handhelds. They're really good for that. They're also really good for applications when they discharge and charge every day, instead of these longer charge cycles. The chemistry that's used in stationary storage in mobile environments, you think about trains and RVs and boats and things like that, is lithium iron phosphate. Lithium iron phosphate is a lot less volatile than the cobalts. It's also not a heavy metal, so you can recycle it. You don't have to deal with disposals when they get old. When we talk about lithium, I mentioned it before. Smaller, lighter weight. You could, when you look at the size and volume of a lead battery, you can usually cut that in half, and still almost double your actual capacity. So lithium is really kind of the chemistry to go to if you're looking for small, lightweight power. The other thing that's not really talked about a lot is voltage stability. Everybody knows when you have lead-based batteries, when your batteries are dead because your lights are dim and your motors don't work real well, and you say, okay, this is bad. Well, that's because as batteries discharge, their voltage drops. Where lithium batteries, at full charge, they're just over 13 volts, but at completely dead, they're 12.1, and so they waterfall after that. And so you never get that slow motors, dimming lights, and things like that in the bottom end of that cycle. And you can also discharge them pretty deeply without significant long-term damage like you do with lead batteries. But so yeah, lithium batteries are definitely the way to go. The second thing, if I can kind of wrap it up with this, is that people get concerned about is the cost. And I think that's a little misleading, because when you think about the cost of a lead-based battery, and you need to double that to get the same capacity in lithium. So, there's a cost difference there. And even if you do that, you say, okay, well, I've got 600 amp hours. That means I only need 300 amp hours of lithium. That's still more expensive than 600 amp hours of lead. Until you think about that, the lithium will outlast 3 to 4 banks of lead batteries in that same application. You get way more cycle life out of a lithium battery. So lithium batteries are cheaper in their cost of total ownership. It's just a little bit more expensive on the leading end, but it's definitely, if you're gonna own your system for 10, 15 years, lithium is definitely gonna save you money in the long run.
So Don, in that same vein, Robert from Instagram was asking, can you stack lithium ion batteries? And is there any limit to that?
Size, weight. So yeah, you can parallel stack. You can't always series stack lithium batteries. It depends on their BMS. And so to try to get 24, 48, and really when you're doing that, you're better off getting a 24 volt lithium battery or a 48 volt lithium battery. But as far as stacking parallel wise to get better capacity, absolutely you can. You can tie them to common bus bars. And the thing you'll want to make sure you do is verify that your cables all have the same resistance. And what I mean by that is, if you're stacking 2 batteries, great. Tie your main positive to one battery's positive, your main negative to the other battery's negative. We talk about that all the time with lead. It's really important with lithium. If you're going with a lot of lithium batteries, 3, 4, you're almost better off finding a bigger battery bank or bigger single battery, so you've got one BMS that controls the whole system. But if you need to do that, just make sure that all your positive cables go to a single point and they're the same length. If you make sure that they're the same length, then all the resistances are similar and they'll charge similarly and discharge similarly. But yeah, there's not really I mean, I'm sure there's a limit when you get to ridiculous levels, but there's not a technical limit.
So we've got a question that came in from Dave, and he is asking, Georgia and Diego, he's asking, what kind of battery bank are you using right now, and how many amp hours will you have with your new Zentrax lithium batteries?
Well, right now we have flooded lead acid batteries, and I second what Don said about the cost, because we got this battery bank 2.5 years ago before crossing the Pacific, and they are already shot. A lot because the reason I told that we didn't have enough panels to keep them charged. But I think it's just the way it is. These lead acid flooded batteries, they don't last on the long run. They don't last a long time. So yeah, lithium can be more cost effective on the long term. So right now I have 630 amp hours of flooded lead acid. I still don't know. It's just all this is very new. This launching, this kind of got us a surprise. I'm sure you're gonna discuss with Dom and to balance our system here and see how much lithium we are getting.
So Wesley, somebody else was talking about their system on their boat. Actually, 2 people asked a similar question about putting flex panels on a bimini roof. And so one person was asking, can you do it? Can you put flex panels on a bimini roof? And then the other person was asking, he's got about 6 square meters and he wants to satisfy about 1,200 amp hours of battery. Is that possible with products, flex panel products that are on the market right now?
Thanks, Adam. Those are great questions and very common questions if you have a boat. Yeah, absolutely. For a bimini, you can. The best option for installing solar panels is a flexible panel. and because flexible panels are lightweight and they are flexible. And a lot of flexible panels out there on the market, they actually have grommet holes around the perimeter of the panel that allows you multiple options to be able to mount these panels. So on a bimini, you could use some sort of rope to tie down the panels through each of the grommets. Some of the biminis, you can actually install built-in fasteners that go through the grommets, and you can actually tie them down as well, screw them down. If you're thinking about using adhesive, typically that's not recommended, especially if it's a fabric-based bimini. A lot of adhesive out there probably aren't suitable for mounting on a fabric-based mounting surface, and so it's best to stay away from those. But certainly look for a flexible panel with grommets, and there's probably multiple options for you to be able to mount those on a bimini. For the next question, 6 square meters, that's a good amount of space, but for 1,200 amp hours worth of batteries, that is a very, very large battery bank. So you're going to need a lot more solar if you're going to just rely on solar to charge the 1,200 amp hours. So it's you may need to consider adding a generator to charge that 1,200 amp hours worth of battery, because 6 square meters is definitely not enough solar to be able to charge that on a daily basis.
So we're talking about generators. Don, we had a question that came in from Instagram, and Linda is asking, can an inverter charger work with an onboard generator? So what are your thoughts?
Yeah. So as a matter of fact, there's a whole Tech Doctor article on inverters versus generators, and it's like this grudge match, which one's better. And at the end of the day, there's differences in how they work the best. Generators are not good for handling light long-term loads, like watching TV for 2 hours, because you're going to turn on a 1,000-watt load and you're going to run a 7,000-watt generator to feed this 1,000-watt load. It's just not efficient. The second area where generator use doesn't make sense is heavy short-term loads. So, you know, you're hungry, you're gonna pop something in the microwave, and you're gonna cook it for 5 minutes. So you start your generator, cook your lunch, and then you turn your generator off. Well, those engines like to warm up and heat up and run hot so that they can burn all of their carbon off of the valves. And so running them for a short time is just really bad for the engine. But those are the two scenarios where inverters really shine: heavy short-term loads and light long-term loads. So, you know, the conclusion in this grudge match Tech Doctor article is they complement each other. Use your inverter for these inverter appropriate loads until your battery is discharged, or until you want to run an air conditioner or something that's a heavy long-term load. Start your generator, let it do its job, let it run at, you know, 70, 80, 90% of its capacity, so it can heat up and it can power these loads, charge your batteries back up, and then when that's done, shut off the generator and let the inverter do what it's good at.
So we also had a question come in, and somebody was asking, is there a way they can be more efficient with their inverter when they're not using it? Is there a low power setting on the Zentrax inverters? How can they kind of reduce the need for, or reduce the consumption of the inverter when they're at a low power setting or not using it?
Yeah, so there's two answers to that question. The first one is use the power save mode, and I admittedly, with different platforms, it's called different things, whether it's power save or idle mode or sleep mode. And what you'll do is you'll use that if you're not actively using the inverter, but there's a load that you need to keep powered, like say a refrigerator or something like that. With power save mode, what the inverter will do is it'll watch your usage, and if it's over a certain setting, let's say 25 watts, the inverter will turn on and start to invert. If it's below that setting, the inverter will go into a sleep mode, where it uses very little power, and it'll just put out a pulse every couple of seconds looking for a load to come back on. And when the refrigerator comes back on to cool, it sees that and it'll turn on and start to invert that load. So that's the first question, or the first answer. The second answer is, if you don't need the inverter and you're walking away and you don't have a load that needs the inverter, shut the inverter off. Some of our inverters will keep their processor going, waiting for certain things. Some of our modern inverters, like the XC2000 that we've been talking about today, when you turn it off, its parasitic draw is just really nothing. Just leakage currents of capacitors, which is in the milliamp rating. So just turn it off. You're not going to have AC power. If you don't need it, just turn it off.
Cool. So well, we're going to keep talking about that XC2000 inverter charger, and we had a question that came in, Georgia and Diego, from Facebook, and they said, what was your setup before, and how does your sailboat operate differently now that you've changed to the Zentrax Freedom XC2000 inverter charger?
It completely changed our life. Yes.
Yeah, and as I told you, we got this boat and really excited, so we underlook all the problems. And one big issue was that there was no inverter at all. So we went to auto shop and got a cheap one, just because we needed to charge our computers, because we don't have any way to charge our computers on 12 volts. But again, on the long run, it's just like we could never use the blender and
A power tool.
Yeah, so just like we're very limited on everything we could use. But
And also like always one device at a time. We could never charge more than one thing at the same time. We couldn't use the sockets on the boat.
Yeah, the sockets just in the marina. And this was, I think, was a 100 watts inverter. We plug on the that 12 volt socket, and so that was very, very poor experience with that. And then Zentrax came in, and we have now a XC2000, which is a fantastic piece of gear, just like very easy to install. At first, I was just like concerned, oh my God, I'm gonna get this, and I'll have to call an electrician. That will cost me money, and it will be a nightmare to install. But no, actually, it's super easy, super easy. To be fair, I watched another video from Zentrax webpage from Voyages of Agape, where Josh on YouTube, where Josh teach you how to install it, and it's very simple. And I did myself, and now we just like we have blender, we have a vacuum sealing machine, we have a.
We are charging this computer right now, our camera gear.
Yeah, we have even a TV that we never ever use, but we have it. So yeah, it's just and.
Sometimes I just feel like I'm in a house, you know.
Yeah, it's just like the convenience of a house.
Yeah, of course the power is limited. I cannot use as much as I want, but
on a windy sunny day, it's just like you feel like unlimited.
Life is easier.
So yeah, it's just like from water to wine.
A question came in, Wesley, from Ken on Instagram, and he's asking, can I add a flex panel to a rigid glass panel system? How will that impact his system?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say the caveat is that you would probably want to have a separate charge controller for the flex panel and have a separate charge controller for the rigid panels. A general rule of thumb when designing your solar system or solar array is keep everything symmetrical. And what I mean that is keep all the solar panels the same size, the same model, same type. If you're wiring your solar array in a parallel series configuration, keep the voltages and currents the same in each string, so it maximizes the amount of power out of your solar array. So mismatches in different solar strings in a solar array can cause lower performances out of your solar array. So try to keep everything symmetrical. So for rigid panels, you can definitely add a flexible panel, but I would suggest having a separate charge controller for that.
So I think this is a question for you, Wesley, but we're going to see if it's for you or Don. So a question came in from Steven, and he asked, do you anticipate the industry will provide a 4-season mobile solution that is functional down to -30 Celsius? So that's just below freezing for our Fahrenheit friends.
So, yeah, I mean, there's potential there. The real problem is the temperature really gets you into trouble. People focus on the batteries, and electricity flows better the lower the temperature is. So it's not about current flow or anything like that. But everything uses these capacitors, and most capacitors are electrolytic capacitors, and they have a freezing point. They do have capacitors that have a lower freezing point because they use a different electrolyte, but they tend to be terribly expensive. And so kind of loading an off-the-shelf solution for those who are going to be in these really extreme cold weather doesn't make a lot of sense. So, you know, when you talk about a full system, I don't know that anybody's going to do a full system. That you're getting into some specs that are out of the norm, and which kind of brings the question: why would you take your boat somewhere where it's 30 below? I just don't understand that.
That is a valuable question. That is a question worth asking. Maybe you want to go snorkeling
Under the ice.
Under the ice. We had an interesting question came in. Is there any future Xantrex plans to get an electric main engine for sailboats? So then Zentrax would have the 100% control and run the boat. For a little bit of context, they're looking 80 to 100-foot steel boat, but they want to build it 100% electric with solar panel. And their plan is to stay at sea 3 to 5 months without any land power. Is that anywhere in the future?
It's all about energy, and you've got energy usage and energy supply, and they have to be able to match. So, you know, you talk about this 100-foot boat. I mean, I would have to look at the math behind that, which I don't think we have time for me to do today because people like to stay awake. But but if you can get enough solar on top to push the vehicle, right now I don't think the technology's there yet to do that, because it takes a lot of energy to push water out of the way, and so, you know, I think we're going to have to wait for a new technology of solar panels or other kind of renewable energy. I don't think for propulsion you'll ever get, not in the near term anyway, get past engines, internal combustion engines. I mean, for land-based vehicles, we can do that because we have charging stations all over the place. And if you break down, somebody can pull up and charge you up. But when you break down on the water, it's just a totally different story.
So another question for you, Don. This one is from Jacques, and he's asking about starting to plan cruising in a couple of years. And I'm sure he doesn't mean like Royal Caribbean cruising. I'm sure he's talking about his own boat, but he's wondering about the future of technology. And would you recommend that he would look into 12 volt, 24 volt, 48 volt? What would be the differences or the benefits?
So, yeah, especially when you're talking about inverting. So in the planning stages, this is a perfect time to kind of think about those things. When you're talking about energy conversion, going from one voltage to another, the closer those voltages are, the better off you are. So an inverter that's trying to put out 120 volts, if your battery voltage is 12 volts, your cap is going to be around 3,000 watts. But if you go to 24 volt or 48 volt, then you can end up with bigger inverters, and your DC cable ends up smaller, and so you can carry a lot more current. You can do a lot more with the higher voltages. The problem is accessories. So when you talk about lighting and motors and pumps and things like that, 12 volt is the common. So everything else becomes more expensive with 48 volt just because it's not as common. As a matter of fact, we just released an inverter that's 4,000 watt 48 volt DC, and we built in a 48 volt to 12 volt DC to DC converter so that we can power 12 volt DC loads, because that's what's common. It's all about the planning and size. If you're looking at your inverter and you're not going to need 3,000 plus watts of AC load, then you're fine sticking with the 12 volt. You're still having a lot of common accessories around the rest of the boat without going through a lot of complexity.
So Georgia and Diego, I've got a curveball for you, and this comes from Desmond. Desmond has asked, when can we expect to see the lithium Xantrex battery? But before Wesley answers that question, let me put up this graphic, and I'd like you to tell me a little bit about our announcement today. Go ahead.
Yeah, so this is the launching, and we just after this live stream, there will be another video on our channel, Unforgettable Sailing channel, where we're gonna tell you how to get the best deal on these batteries. So just don't miss it, but have to be quick because this promo, just the 10% discount plus free Yeti mug, is just while the stocks last or till July 31st. So be quick or you may lose it.
So
Yes,
Wesley, when do we expect delivery on those lithium batteries?
Yeah, just wait for after this show, and Diego and Georgia will send something out of where you can purchase these batteries and with the discount code and the Yeti mug. So stay tuned after this podcast, and Georgia and Diego will send something out on their Facebook page.
Sorry, Georgia, I didn't
On
mean to cut
YouTube.
you off. Was there something you were going to add?
No, I was just going to say the same thing. And yeah, on our YouTube, in our YouTube channel, we're gonna launch the video with the coupon code to get this 10% discount, and also the Yeti mug.
I just sorry, I'm
And,
just dropping in.
yeah.
So I had a question here. Just someone asked if they will be available in Australia.
I don't know that I know the answer to that. Sorry, go ahead.
At this time, we're not offering it to Australia, just to the North American markets at this moment. But certainly, that's something that is in the works. So stay tuned for that.
So we've had a few more questions come in, and then I want to circle back with George and Diego, a couple more questions about what their plans are to sail next. But before we get there, Lauren from Instagram asked Dawn if she has a solar panel and a generator, if she's plugged in at the dock, which device will be charging her battery?
That's a really good question. So it depends on how the system is designed, because current will always flow where there's the least amount of resistance. So if you're plugged in, your charger is trying to charge the batteries. If you've got solar panels, the solar panel or the solar controller is trying to charge the battery. If the battery is severely discharged, there's very little resistance for either one of them, and they will probably both put out as much current as they can into the battery. But as the battery increases in its charge, and depending on how it's wired, so if you go to a common bus bar and then to the battery, one charger might kind of override the other charger, and the other charger will see the first charger as a full battery and back off. But when your batteries are low, there's very little resistance, so they'll both be charging at the same time. They don't really compete with each other until it gets pretty full.
Okay, so we can save a little bit of fuel and a little bit of noise if we turn that generator off and let the dock do its thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. One more question, Don. Let's see, Nicole is asking from Facebook, how does she know if her inverter is set up to be compatible with solar panels?
It depends on the inverter. So typically there's a battery type that's programmed in, and that will determine the charge algorithm. So for our platforms, it depends on the platform. One has, flooded, AGM, gel, and custom. And custom is where you get into the lithiums, or you'll see, flooded, AGM, and LiPo, or LiPo 4 or something like that, and that would be the lithium. And so take a look at that. And if that didn't answer your question, get on the phone with tech support, and they'll walk you through the process of making sure that you're good for the batteries you have.
Okay, one more technical question that's come in. Jacques asking, can you explain charge cycles? For instance, what does a 6,000 cycle mean?
So it's basically a discharge and then a full charge cycle. And so 6,000 cycles, there's a lot of talk in the industry about how many cycles a battery will last. Like when you look at lead batteries, their target is about 1,000 cycles. Realistically, they're about 800 cycles. And in some markets, we see them as low as 400 cycles, 600 cycles, just because they get abused or they sulfate and things like that. With lithium batteries, it's the same but it's not as extreme. So with a lead battery, if you discharge below 50%, you limit your cycle life really, really fast. With lithium, if you only discharge the top 20%, you'll get 6,000 cycles. If you go to 50%, it's more like 5,000 or 5,500. If you go to 10%, it might be 3,000, 3,500 cycles or something like that. And because there's no real consistency in that, sometimes you'll go all the way down, sometimes you'll only discharge a little bit. That will affect your cycle life, but not nearly as much as with a lead. But the definition of a cycle is discharged to some level and then charged back up to full.
Okay, thank you for everybody who's submitted a question on the live broadcast. I hope that we got to answering your questions as best as we can with the information that we have. And thanks for hanging out today. A couple questions before we go for Georgia and Diego. The first one is, what is next for you guys? Where are you headed next? What does your adventure look like from here?
Our plan is, as soon as the borders are open again, we keep sailing the South Pacific. So from here, we want to go to Tonga, New Zealand, Fiji, Vanuatu, New Caledonia, like all these paradisiac islands in the South Pacific. So we are just waiting. As soon as we can, we are setting sail.
Yeah, and we are taking this time now to wait for our baby girl to grow a bit and to prepare the boat, because if someone missed it, we are currently in French Polynesia. It's remote, but there's a lot of structure here. You can find parts and stuff like that. But from here to the west, it gets more remote. So we are also taking the time to prepare the boat so we can be just like completely off grid for longer periods. And that's what we've been working on, and Zentrax has been in great help of it. So yeah, that's more islands all the way to New Zealand, Australia, and then we'll see.
So if somebody wants to follow along on your adventure, and I know your Instagram is a pile of fun because I've enjoyed following it myself, what's the best way for people to connect with you on Instagram, on YouTube? Where else can we find out more about your adventure?
Well, on our Instagram, you can learn how to cut somebody else's hair, as you have seen these days. Please don't learn from me.
It's not too bad.
Yeah. But yeah, our social medias then where people can follow us. We have a YouTube channel, as we've said, Unforgettable Sailing.
Yep.
We post new videos every Thursday. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's it.
And our Instagram, Unforgettable Sailing, also is basically for all the medias is Unforgettable Sailing. Facebook too. Yeah, we post on Instagram regularly the behind the scenes, what's going on around here, and on YouTube our weekly episode from the places we've seen, what's happening here, boat work, every kind of things related to sailing and cruising.
Yeah, we try to bring a good mix and match of boat projects, daily life, sailing, and
in our coming videos, yeah, you'll get the chance to see also when our batteries arrive, when we install it, how is it going, the usage of it. So please follow us and you'll get our feedback. And I hope we'll be drinking hot coffee in a Yeti mug also.
And also, if you don't yet subscribe to Unforgettable Sailing on YouTube, now is the time, because in a few minutes, when this video is done, what's going to happen on your channel?
We're going to launch a video, yes, describing how you can get the best deal for these Xantrex lithium batteries. It's super fantastic deal, guys. There's a coupon code that we're going to share on the video, and we are going to tell you where you can get them and all the other stuff, the important stuff.
Yeah, I don't think it's much better than this. So stay tuned. As soon as this live stream ends, we're going to make this video public, and you can see how you can get this.
Yeah, 10% discount, Yeti mug, and yeah, stay tuned because this is till July 31st or when the stock finishes. If it finished earlier, yeah.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for hanging out today, Georgia and Diego. Thank you, Wesley. Thank you, Don. And thank you, everybody who watched along. Please go like the Zentrax YouTube. Subscribe to YouTube and follow us on Facebook and the other social media channels so that you can catch future live broadcasts, ask your question with the experts, and learn from people who are actually using these products in real life. Again, everybody, thank you so much for hanging out, and signing off.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks.